The U.S. Surgeon General says alcoholic drinks should carry a warning label about their link to cancer. The advisory issued today said that consuming alcohol increases the risk of developing breast, colon, liver, and other types of cancer. It also calls for guidelines on alcohol consumption to be reassessed. The Surgeon General called alcohol the third leading preventable cause of cancer in the U.S. after tobacco and obesity. Earlier, we spoke to a public health scientist who led a study in this country on alcohol warning labels.
The evidence in Canada and internationally shows that alcohol consumers are largely unaware that alcohol causes cancer, and that providing this information to consumers makes them report that they would think more about the health risks from consuming alcohol and potentially even cut back on their alcohol use.
That was Public Health Ontario scientist Erin Hoban speaking on CBC News Network earlier. In 2017, she ran an experiment that placed cancer warning labels on alcohol in 2 stores in Yukon. She said results showed the labels increased awareness about the link between alcohol and cancer and reduced alcohol consumption. Well, the Surgeon General's recommendation in the U.S. comes, of course, right after the holiday season, a time of indulgence and celebration. So what kind of impact could warning labels have on alcohol consumption here in Canada? CBC's John Ngala takes a look.
Sergio De Silva runs a bar that hosts many different concerts. He says non-alcoholic drinks are popular among the crowd it attracts.
We care about it. We want it to taste good. We want you to feel like you're enjoying something social with your friends.
De Silva says consumers are more conscious about their alcohol consumption, but he doesn't believe a label warning about cancer risks on drinks will make people think twice about consuming alcohol.
I know that it's bad for me. I feel it when I wake up the next day and I've had too much. I'm like, oh, I've literally poisoned myself. I don't need some American guy to tell me that this is bad.
In a statement, the U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy called for alcoholic drinks to carry a label that warns consumers about their risk of developing cancer.
The Canadian Cancer Society welcomes this report. We've been calling on the federal government to implement alcohol warning labels for several years now.
Elizabeth Holmes says only 40% of Canadians are not aware of the link between alcohol and cancer. She says label warnings would be a good opportunity to raise more awareness about the dangers of drinking alcohol.
Drinking any type of alcohol, whether that's beer, wine, or spirits, increases your risk for at least 9 different types of cancer. And so to reduce your risk of cancer, it's best not to drink alcohol. And if you do, the less alcohol you drink, the lower your cancer risk.
Some of the people I spoke to say they're for the label warnings.
Like in the cigarettes, they have the smoke kills. I think it's a good idea.
If there's a cancer risk with alcohol, it should be said and it should be printed.
For me, for example, I'm going to do the dry January to have a good health and to begin the sport for the new year.
It's important to be informed of the decisions that you're making and the things that you're consuming. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I don't think it'll make a big difference to the majority of people's consumption habits. People like being social. People like going out. People like having a smoke and a drink after work.
De Silva says, like everything in life, moderation is key. John Ngala, CBC News, Montreal.
In the spotlight tonight is Quebec Senator Patrick Brazeau. In 2022, he tabled a bill to add warning labels to alcohol that display the link between alcohol consumption and fatal cancers. Senator, first of all, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
I'd like to begin with your reaction to the U.S. Surgeon General's comments today about alcohol labeling. Do you think there is an appetite to pass such legislation right now, either in the U.S. or Canada?
Well, I think we have no choice because obviously the science has been there for decades. The data is in, and now we know that even small amounts of alcohol consumption could lead to 7 fatal cancers, and breast cancers in women and colon cancers for men. And so we have to stop treating alcohol as if it's all fun and games and celebratory, and we have to look at the negative impacts of alcohol. And here we're talking about some very important health information that every Canadian should be made aware of. But unfortunately, only 25% of Canadians are aware that there's a causal link between alcohol consumption and 7 fatal cancers.
Why do you think that number's so low?
Well, again, I think it goes back to the point that oftentimes we view alcohol as celebratory and all about fun and games, and look at all the commercials and look at all the promotion and advertising about alcohol, but yet we don't talk about the deaths, we don't talk about the DUIs, we don't talk about the accidents, the injuries, the domestic abuse cases, the suicides, the depression, and the dependency, the FASD that all alcohol causes. And so, when we hear provincial premiers and elected leaders across the country saying how much it's important for alcohol sales, well, we have a $6 billion alcohol deficit in Canada, which means that it costs taxpayers and consumers more in legal fees, in health costs, and in societal costs compared to what alcohol sales bring in. And so I just think it's time that we have an honest conversation about the impacts of alcohol. And the question that I ask everybody is that when we talk about cannabis or we talk about tobacco, they have health warnings, but why do alcohol companies get a free pass? That is the question that needs to be answered.
You mentioned the companies, and first of all, I'd like you to remind us what did happen to that bill you proposed in 22 and what kind of lobbying by industry or others you have seen against it.
Well, look, obviously, any lobbying that's against my bills comes from the alcohol industry and the alcohol lobby itself. And, I know they're very powerful. But that being said, just before Christmas, the Senate committee that will be studying Bill S-254, the Science, Social Affairs and Science and Technology Committee decided that probably in February, early February, when we return, we will be completing study of Bill S-253, which is looking to a national framework into fetal alcohol syndrome disorder. And shortly thereafter, we'll be studying my bill with respect to alcohol labeling, so Bill S-254. And so the timing is right. And obviously, I welcome the announcement by the U.S. Surgeon General. But, having said that, it was just a matter of time because, like I said, the science has been there. Now it's just up to elected politicians to follow suit and to develop policies with respect to alcohol in Canada, because unfortunately, political parties don't have policies with respect to alcohol.
I wonder your thoughts on something you alluded to, and that is that the Ford government in Ontario did expand alcohol sales with new licenses for grocery and convenience stores to sell alcoholic beverages, while also pledging additional funding to support the safe consumption of alcohol. Is that a fair balance, in your opinion?
Well, unfortunately, no. The answer is no. It's not a fair balance. But that being said, unfortunately, here the law of the land is that there are many politicians in Canada that make decisions with respect to alcohol because of pressures from the alcohol lobby. Because sometimes the alcohol lobby can shake things up in the backgrounds. They can make or break candidates in terms of winning elections, and so they apply a lot of pressure. They apply the same pressures that the tobacco companies did 25 years ago, but. The alcohol has become the new tobacco, and we have to stop being hypocritical about it. We have to look at the data, and facts are facts. We can't argue with facts. And there are negative impacts that comes with alcohol. And if we are serious, and if we're serious about being fiscally prudent, we should take a look at what alcohol is doing to our communities, our families, and our societies in general.
I know the bill you proposed and your subsequent fight in the Senate for stronger restrictions and notifications such as labels on alcohol comes from a very personal place. You have shared openly with Canadians about your own struggles with alcohol. Can you remind us why you are so personally passionate about this cause?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I made no mistake about it that, I had a lot of problems with alcohol. It contributed to some suicide attempts, but that being said, I'm going to be celebrating 5 years of sobriety this coming March. So yes, it is very personal, but it became more personal when I found myself to be in the 25% of Canadians that were not aware that a small amount of alcohol consumption could lead to 7 fatal cancers. And my mother died of cancer herself, and I had pledged to her on her deathbed that I would try to do anything that I could to fight cancer. And this is what it is. This is a fight about cancer. But unfortunately, we have the alcohol companies in the way of providing some real important health information, because at the end of the day, it's all about providing consumers, Canadian consumers and Canadian citizens with the health information that, you know, they have the right to be made aware of.
Senator, I so appreciate your insights on this in particular. Thanks again for making time for us tonight.
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk about this very important issue.
Senator Patrick Brazeau joining us.